At night, a policeman was on guard duty on the side of the road while enjoying his burger. Not long after, a car at high speed crossed the road being guarded by the police, causing the windows of the police car to shake. Then, the next morning in a crowded place, a man was seen getting out of his car, and this man was Sheriff Ray Owens. Then, a fat man wearing a cowboy hat approached Ray, and he was the local mayor. They chatted a little, and then the mayor left his car to Ray because he was going to attend a meeting. After that, Ray stopped by his favorite coffee shop and enjoyed a glass of coffee. While Ray was enjoying his coffee, he suddenly saw two men sitting not far from him. Those two men were named Burrell and Faceburn. Ray asked where they were going today. Burrell then said that they were going to a car show in New Orleans tomorrow afternoon. After that, they hurried away. Not long after that, Ray also left and immediately wrote down the license plate number of the truck. While in another place, three men were seen playing in a meat shootout. Two of the men were local police and Ray Owens' subordinates. Those two policemen were Mike Figueroa and Jerry Bailey, while another man was Louis Dinkum. There, the three of them looked like they were having fun, and suddenly Ray came over to them to give them duty. On the other hand, Burrell arrived at his destination and tried to persuade a farmer because they were going to use the farmer's land. Meanwhile, at the police station, a female police officer named Sarah Torrance was talking with a man, and he was the only prisoner in the police station. The man's name is Frank Martinez, a former military man, and he was arrested because he often drank and made chaos. It turned out that Frank was Sarah's ex-boyfriend and Jerry's best friend. Because Jerry was not familiar with tracing the vehicle's number, he didn't even know how to track it. Therefore, he asked Mike to trace the truck's number. After finding the identity of the truck owner, Jerry rushed to meet Ray to tell him the information. At the same time, Jerry complained to Ray that his working performance wouldn't be developed if he only worked in this place, because there were no cases he could handle. Jerry also said that his best job for the last 4 days was rescuing a neighbor's cat that was trapped in a tree. Then the scene switched to Las Vegas. Here, there was a man named John Bannister. He was an agent who would lead an operation to move a prisoner named Gabriel Cortez. In this story, Gabriel Cortez was a very cruel drug syndicate boss and will be moved to the place of execution. Before they got ready, John told his members that Cortez would no longer enjoy freedom and they would leave in secret. When they all stopped at a traffic light, suddenly a magnetic pulley lifted the car carrying Cortez to the top of the building. When John's troops had reached the rooftop, Cortez was no longer in the car. And when John and the others came out of the building, they saw a rope extending to the next building. Then one of John's men saw someone running dressed like a prisoner. However, when they managed to catch the man, it turned out that the person was not Cortez, but someone else. John felt that Cortez had succeeded in tricking the FBI. After that, two of John's subordinates, Ellen Richards and McKay, checked the back of the building. Then someone got out of the car, and he was Cortez. When John and Agent Phil came, they saw that McKay was dead and Ellen Richard was gone. Arriving at the office, John immediately interrogated one of the men who had been arrested by the FBI team. On the other hand, Ray was asleep and suddenly woke up because his phone rang. When Ray picked up the phone, it was a woman who worked at the coffee shop, Christy. The woman told Ray that she had not received the milk she had ordered, which was usually delivered by an old man named Pearson. All this time, Pearson had never been late in delivering the milk, and Christy was worried about him, afraid that something bad would happen to Pearson. Meanwhile, John was informed by Agent Phil's subordinate, Mitchell, that he saw from CCTV camera that Cortez was running away by driving a modified Corvette ZR1. John immediately ordered his members, and also the police, to carry out a raid to catch the person driving the car mentioned. However, Cortez was not at all afraid, even though there were lots of police chasing him. He easily passed through the police blockade. At the FBI office, John was seen explaining to his colleagues that Cortez was a former professional racer, and he had seen for himself how powerful he was while he was behind the steering wheel. Not long after that, John got a call from Cortez, telling him to withdraw all his troops who were trying to stop him. Otherwise, Cortez would send Agent Ellen Richards in pieces, and there would be many more victims. On the other hand, Jerry and Sarah arrived at Pearson's house to check on his condition. When they entered the house, Pearson was already murdered, and then Jerry immediately told Ray about this. In another place, the FBI team had found the car driven by Cortez. After that, the FBI team together with the police blocked the road that Cortez would take. Meanwhile, Ray arrived at Pearson's house and saw the situation there. Ray saw that Pearson was shot straight in the head, piercing his skull. On the other hand, Cortez was still being chased by the FBI team, and in the car, Cortez gave Ellen the handcuff key. It turned out that Agent Ellen Richards had been collaborating with Cortez all this time. While on his way, Cortez suddenly stopped his car, and suddenly the FBI team lost track of Cortez's car, and Cortez disappeared. While at the FBI office, John, who looked at the digital map, targeted the only road that Cortez would pass through is the Los Algodones. John ordered his team to send a relief team to strengthen all crossing points in Los Algodones. Not only that, John also contacted Sheriff Ray Owens in that city, telling him that there might be a dangerous fugitive who had fled towards the Mexican border, and it was also possible that he crossed through Summertown. When Jerry and Sarah were checking the traces of Pearson's murderer, they saw several suspicious men. They stopped and went down to check it, and it turned out that the man was Faceburn, Burrell's subordinate. When Jerry approached him, Faceburn immediately shot Jerry until he fell, and there was a shootout between Sarah and those men. When Jerry was helpless because he had been shot twice, Ray finally arrived. Unfortunately, on the way to the hospital, Jerry breathed his last breath, so this made Ray and his team sad, including Frank, Jerry's best friend. In the morning, Ray contacted John to ask who the fugitive they were currently facing was. John said that the fugitive was Gabriel Cortez, and if Ray had known about this beforehand, he would not have lost one of his colleagues. On the other side, Cortez, who was on the run, managed to take down 2 SWAT team cars easily. Meanwhile, at the office, Ray convinced Mike that he would fight with Cortez for the sake of Jerry. Finally, Ray decided to fight Cortez with his members, including Frank, who offered himself to join them because they lacked members. And because they lacked weapons, Ray went to Louis Dinkum and borrowed some of his collection, because Louis was a local weapons collector. But Louis wanted to help Ray on the condition that he had to join Ray's team, just like Frank. It was intended that if there was any damage he did, then it would be the responsibility of the local police. After they agreed, Louis finally showed the collection he had. After everything was ready, they finally left. And when they arrived in the middle of the city, Ray and his group immediately blocked the road so that Cortez could not pass through. And on the other side, John and Agent Phil were seen heading to Summertown using a private jet. There, Agent Phil showed a satellite view map, and he said that what Ray said was true, that Cortez had built a bridge to exit the border to Mexico. Phil also found factual information about Ray that he used to be a LAPD member in the narcotics section for 5 years. Then he quit because he survived a gunshot and 5 bullets lodged in his body. While 7 of his fellow police officers did not survive, so after that incident, Ray decided to move to Summertown. Long story short, Burrell, along with his other members, arrived in Summertown. And without further ado, Mike fired his gun at Burrell because Burrell was going to shoot Christie, who was walking. Not long after that, Burrell immediately ordered one of his members to take an RPG weapon to Mike in order to immediately end the conflict that was going on. But unexpectedly, it turned out that Mike managed to survive and got out by shooting at Burrell and his members blindly using his weapon. Not long after, Frank arrived driving a bus and Ray was ready with his weapon. When Louis saw Mike lying in the middle of the road, he took the initiative to help him, but unfortunately, Burrell, who saw this, immediately shot Louis, causing him to fall down too. After all of Burrell's troops died in this incident, it was Ray's turn to finish off Burrell. With his instinct, Ray shot right in Burrell's ear from under the bus, and when Ray was about to move the bus, he saw Burrell's cell phone ringing because Cortez called him to inform that he had entered Summertown. Ray, who saw this, didn't remain silent. He immediately chased after Cortez, driving the mayor's red Chevrolet Camaro that was entrusted to him. Meanwhile, Cortez, who was on the run, dropped Agent Ellen Richards from his car. Cortez realized that he was cornered, so he immediately ran away to reach a bridge that had been built by his men. There, Cortez made small talk and offered Ray millions of dollars, so he was allowed to cross the border and enjoy his freedom. However, it turned out that Ray was not tempted by Cortez's offer because he still adhered to his oath as a policeman. Cortez did not accept this, so he decided to fight with Ray. When the chaos in Summertown subsided, John and Phil had arrived in the city, and at the same time, Ray arrived along with Cortez, who was tied to the back of the car while walking. After John put Cortez into the prison car, Agent Ellen Richards' voice was heard, calling him. John immediately came to her and handcuffed her. After that, John was seen approaching Ray, and not long after that, the mayor, who had finished attending the meeting, had to accept the fact that his car was no longer in perfect condition like before, and the movie ended.